What is up, everybody? It is your boy, Pigskin Pete. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Welcome to another edition of Walk and Talk with Pete, where I do just that. I walk and I talk, and you hopefully listen and hit the thumbs up and comment below. All right, so I was not planning on doing a walk and talk video today, but I am out here walking, as you can see. And I did want to respond to the meltdown of sorts that the Clemson fan base is having, and some people outside of the Clemson fan base, based on the comments that Dabo Swinney gave at the weekly presser at Clemson yesterday regarding, yes, the transfer portal. Now, I have remained pretty quiet on this subject on YouTube. Well, I take that back. I have not remained quiet about this on YouTube. The difference is, for some reason, Clemson loses 2 football games for the first time since 2014. And everybody starts freaking out and talking about needing to use the transfer portal. The difference between those people and people like me is I've been talking about Clemson needing to use the transfer portal for several years now. So to me, it's already old news, and losing 2 football games has nothing to do with it. What you'll notice, and this is probably like this with a lot of different fan bases, especially fan bases that have been as successful over recent years as Clemson has, right? I'm sure this happened with Urban Meyer and Ohio State. I'm sure it happens with Nick Saban in the Alabama fan base. But there's 2 sectors to the fan base. There is the Dabo Swinney is screwing up and Clemson's going to fall off a cliff crowd. And then there's the Dabo is Jesus Christ and walks on water and can do no wrong crowd. Now, proudly, I don't believe I fall into any one of those categories. I pride myself in general, not just in football, is not thinking of things in such black and white all the time. There is always a gray area, so I fall somewhere in the middle of those 2 groups of people. First of all, I do think that Clemson should be utilizing the transfer portal in some way, shape, or form. And if there was any year to do that, this past season would have been the season to do it, based on the glaring needs at offensive line and everything that we lost to the NFL draft off of last year's team. And the critics say, hey, well, Pete, it's not like you just going to Walmart and picking up an offensive lineman off the shelf. It doesn't work like that. Well, I understand that. But there was a lot. Okay, there was a lot of really good players out there in the portal. Some were all SEC, a couple of All-Americans. They ended up going to other great programs, maybe not equal, but up near the same level as a place like Clemson. Not every kid that enters the transfer portal is a quitter. Not every kid that enters the transfer portal is some sort of behavior problem. I mean, if you just look at a case like Joe Burrow sat around for several years, an uber-talented NFL quarterback. He wasn't going to see the field. So what's he supposed to do, sit there and waste away? If he wouldn't have transferred, would he have been the first overall pick in the draft? Probably not. And he's just one of many great players throughout the country who were transfers from another school. I do not want Clemson to become one of these schools like Miami, or a dozen others that basically have to build their roster through the portal. That is just sad. And if you're doing that, you're a long way from being great. And the one thing I think that is frustrating to the critics of Dabo Swinney and his stance on this is that you're taking a net loss every year at this point. So every 5 or 6 years, you're basically losing an entire recruiting class because, yeah, the transfer portal sucks, all right? But it is what it is. It's there. It's not going anywhere. So you're always going to have players transferring out. And we've seen a lot of players transfer out of Clemson, and not just B and C role players. We're talking about 5 stars, starters across the board that have left Clemson for one reason or another, mostly because Clemson is so loaded and talented that they don't want to compete, and maybe they don't belong there if they don't want to compete in the first place. But the bottom line is, you have guys leaving. You have to account for that. You can only sign so many people every season. So you've got to fill that deficit somehow. Coach Swinney says, I don't feel it's fair to give a transfer a potential scholarship to a guy who has either walked on or committed to Clemson from the start. Well, I agree with that. But you can manage the scholarships a little bit differently than you're managing them now. Okay, and I understand. I can already hear the people in the comment section. Oh, how dare you try to tell Dabo Swinney how to manage scholarships? You think you know more than he does? No, I don't think I know more than he does. But there is one thing I do know. I know that there's 2 Swinney boys on scholarship on this football team. Would either one of the Swinney boys get scholarships to any other top 10 program in the country right now? I'll go ahead and answer that for you. The answer is no. And I would say the same is true for the Venables boys, but I do believe at least one of those guys, Jake, is good enough to get scholarships at a lot of schools. So yesterday at the scheduled press conference, Dabo Swinney has to answer yet another question about the transfer portal. And you can tell he's starting to get irritated with the same question over and over again. And I get why he's getting irritated, because there's only so many times you can answer the same question. And you're not going to give a different answer than you gave the last time. But there's a reason that everybody's asking him this question in the first place. Let's not forget that. And the reason is because out of all of the teams in America, he's the only one that has this stance. If you look at every single team in the top 20 right now, probably even the top 25, they all have players on their roster that they got from the transfer portal. Some of them even have superstars, that some of the best players on their team, including Alabama. One of Alabama's best offensive players is from the transfer portal. One of Alabama's best defensive players from the transfer portal. So this is the reason that Swinney gets criticized when he makes statements like this. So yesterday he says, you know, it's sad that teams have to go out there and don't have the talent that Clemson has and have to go out there and get players from the transfer portal. And he said, I quote unquote, that's sad. I don't think anybody's crying for Nick Saban, okay? I don't think anybody's crying for Ryan Day. I don't think anybody's crying for Lincoln Riley, okay? Nobody's crying for any of those people. So I don't know what there is to be sad about. And look, I do not want this to come off as some sort of pigskin Pete bashing Dabo Swinney segment, because it's not. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is not a coach in all of America, and this triggers people when I say this too. There's not a coach in all of America that I would trade Dabo Swinney for. Oh, well, that's stupid, Pete. You wouldn't trade him for Nick Saban? No, I wouldn't. Nick Saban has one foot in the grave. The guy is almost 70 years old. Not to mention, I never said I thought that Dabo Swinney was the quote-unquote best coach in the country. I just said I wouldn't trade him for anybody for my team. And I think the people that are my age or older that have been supporting this football team for 30 and 40 years or longer understand where I'm coming from. When you waddle around in mediocrity as a football program for 30 years, and then you find yourself at the mountaintop because of one guy, one guy and all the people he surrounded him with, then you have some sort of a special affection for that guy, okay? I mean, you can't take that away from Coach Swinney, what he's accomplished. So to cap things off here, I think the bottom line here is it sucks that the transfer portal exists. It's some sort of free agency in college football that us true college football purists really don't like free agency in college football. But the reality is it's here, and if you don't adapt to it in some way, shape, or form, you will get left behind. That's just all there is to it. And I think that Dabo Swinney eventually will figure this out, or I hope he'll eventually figure it out. But he is pretty damn stubborn. He might be the most stubborn coach in all of college football, that's for sure. But if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I am too, so I can't really hate on him for that. All right, guys, thanks for walking with me this morning. It is your boy, Pigskin Pete. Oh, I'll see you guys tonight, 10 p.m. sharp. I need some Clemson fans to call in and talk to me about this. Tonight, 10 p.m. on my YouTube channel. See you there. Pigskin Pete checking out.